theme of questions collected from the public was on the topic of fracking. Nearly 25% of all questions touched on this controversial extraction method. A few of these questions were about emissions, but frequently expressed concerns were about risks to public health. Communities across Colorado, such as Longmont, Boulder County, Fort Collins, Broomfield, and Larimer, have attempted to use local governments and municipal ballot initiatives to protect the health and safety of their communities from oil and gas pollution and establish safe setbacks from schools and playgrounds and homes. The Colorado Oil and Gas Conservation Commission continues to approve hundreds of new controversial wells set in neighborhoods while ignoring well over 1,000 health and safety complaints made in 2018 alone. As governor, so this, by the way, will be a two-part question, and you'll have 2 minutes to answer. First, as governor, what would you do to reform the COGCC to ensure that public health and safety and welfare are protected and prioritized? Secondly, would you support increasing the buffer zone between new oil and gas development and homes, schools, playgrounds, and water sources to 2,500 feet, which is consistent with health studies showing increased health impacts like cancer within a half mile?
Okay, thank you all for the question, and I'm glad we have 2 minutes to answer. First of all, the Colorado Oil and Gas Conservation Commission, the COGCC has put the interests of the oil and gas industry ahead of the public welfare for too long. Time to change. I am the first candidate in this race that came out in support of the Martinez decision, which requires, and quite frankly, I couldn't believe we had to take this to court, to require the state regulatory body to put the public's health, safety, and welfare as its priority in regulating the industry. Of course it should. The state should not appeal that ruling. And if we lose that ruling as your governor, I will seek legislation to make that very clear in state law. I also support local control. We have far too many communities. People have lost trust in this industry, and they need a voice and a say in what happens in their own backyard and outside their playgrounds and next to their schools. So I see the state regulation as a floor and encourage and support our local communities to work with the industry to find some sensible solutions that allow for the development of the resource, but do it in ways where local residents feel that they have power to protect public health, safety, and welfare in their communities. Thank you.
You also respond to the question about would you support the 2,500-foot setbacks between new oil and gas development and home, schools, playgrounds, water sources, which is consistent with health studies showing impacts within a half mile?
So my inclination on this is local control, and I think in some areas of the state that amount of setbacks is probably appropriate. I think in some other areas of the state it may not make sense. So I see the state standards as a floor. I would empower our local governments to go further.
So let me answer your question as it pertains to the commission. You know, I'm a former mayor, and I understand how commissions work. And one of the things that needs to be made sure that the governor understands is that while he may appoint commissions, he needs to make sure that people are understanding how to apply those rules to make sure that the interests and the spirit of the regulations are being implemented correctly. See, I like to work under, you trust people are doing the right thing, but you verify that they're doing the right thing. Too many times politicians will just pass the buck and say, well, I have a commission, they're responsible for all the rules and regulations, and they like to create that buffer. As a governor, I can tell you this. My job is to make sure that every single member that I appoint understands that they are a public servant, that they must focus their decisions on how it's going to enhance the quality of lives and minimize any negative impacts that we may be facing. So that's what I would do as it pertains to that commission directly. Now, as it pertains to the setbacks, I'm probably one of the few candidates that understands land use and zoning and master plans and community development. Being a mayor of a small city of the town of Parker, how many of you have been to Parker, Colorado? Yeah, I like to tell people that, you know, everything you like about Parker, I probably did. everything you hate about Parker is probably the next guy that came in behind him. But here's the thing, setbacks are important. Setbacks are important from the standpoint because you need to create a buffer that allows people to feel safe and secure as it pertains to what is happening next to them. You know, as it pertains to the distance, I think I would have to evaluate, you know, what is the driving factor of that number. Because perhaps it should be smaller, or perhaps it should be a little bit larger. But setbacks are important, and it's an important discussion to have.
Well, hello? Okay. Well, all my life I've taken on powerful special interests, whether it's taking on lobbyists in Colorado by passing ethics reform. In Congress, I've taken on the big insurance companies by supporting single-payer health care. And I've stood up to big oil and gas to protect Coloradans, both here in Colorado as well as in Congress. My position has been consistent and unwavering. We need to protect Coloradans with setbacks that protect our health and safety and make sure that local communities and families have a seat at the table around when and where fracking is done. I will appoint COGCC commissioners that share those values of implementing and operationalizing the Martinez decision, which makes sure that we look at health and safety first. I want to make sure that we can implement better local control to make sure that communities have a seat at the table around decisions that affect their quality of life and their future developments. No one has worked harder to protect Colorado families from residential drilling, starting with when I first learned about fracking, when they put some down near an elementary school in Erie about 10 years ago, to having been fracked myself, where my father-in-law lives in a home I own in Weld County, 800 feet from our front door. So I know wherever I speak, it's a difficult battle. I've had more losses than wins, but that's okay. We learn from losses too. Going forward, I think that we can find a better way to protect the health and safety of residents of our state, as well as make sure that we have strong jobs and growth.
I'm sorry, Representative Pauls, could you also speak to the 2,500-foot setback in relation to the health center?
I've been on the record and have supported personally and financially 1,500 and 2,000-foot setbacks that allow homeowners to have it closer if they want through surface use agreements. I will, continue to support policies that I've historically supported.
I would support the board, the commissioners coming from everyday communities around Colorado. So I would, it'd be just people like you and me on these boards, because I think the people ought to have a say and a voice instead of people with special interests, and that's very important to me. And I'm also not taking any money from any oil and gas representatives or people. I think that's very important. And so, with that said, I think there should be a state law where fracking companies must disclose what kind of emissions they're emitting, and they have to disclose an environmental study, because that's very important. And I think we also need to look at, and this environmental study would come from a third party, so it's not biased. And I think that they would have to disclose that to the community before they go in and frack. And because it's just very important, our environment, we have to protect it. Colorado is a very beautiful state. And the second part to your question is yes, I think we need those boundaries, especially when it comes to school water. Because I was out in Paonia last week, and that's farm country. And they were very concerned about fracking companies messing with, their farmland. And so it's very important. You can't be half in, 1 foot out and 1 foot in on this issue. You have to be either all in or all out. There can't be any in between on this issue, right? And so, to answer your question, yes.
Going in with this, they've been doing fracking for a long time, and you have these companies that go in to check to make sure that it's safe, and they'll show you their reports that show that it's not causing any harm. But we do have thousands of health and safety complaints just within this year, and that shows to me that their reports aren't showing accurate information. If you're having these reports, there needs to be some sort of a change. So they need to look at how they're going about finding their information and making sure that they're tightening up what they're looking at to make sure that their information is accurate, and to really seriously look at these complaints and issues that people are coming up with. So I would definitely look into increasing the buffer zones for people, and I want to make sure that we're using the most up-to-date information and making sure that they are doing things as safely and as responsibly as possible.
Thank you. Sorry, just to pull you back again to the 2,500 feet question.
Yes,
To that amount, you would support that?
yes, I would support that.
First, let me be clear. There is no question that the health and safety of the communities that are impacted by oil and gas drilling need to be protected. There's nothing about the Supreme Court decision that protects the mineral rights that doesn't protect our right to a safe community where we live. The question is, how are we going to do that? And what I'm going to propose is an MOU process that will require the oil and gas industry, when they pick the next site for their drilling, to sit down with the community that's going to be impacted and come to an agreement with an MOU of understanding of how that will take place within their community so they have more of a voice. If they can't come to a decision, then it will have to go back to the commission to go through the normal process. But if they do, then we can fast track that application. Now, the next thing that I will require is that we use new technologies that are available today. They're not the cheapest, but there are new technologies available today that can lessen the impact on our communities. And what does that look like? There are electric drilling rigs that don't have the sound, the noise that impacts communities. We must require those if they're within 2,500 feet of someone's home or school. We must utilize existing technology to cool the drilling fluids so that there isn't gassing off of those fluids when they're doing their drilling. It's more expensive, and frankly, I don't care. We have to protect the rights of these communities. Next, I think like we have building codes for our homes, we should have building codes for those drilling rigs so that the enclosures fit within the neighborhoods in which they exist. And then finally, we should require that they utilize pipelines wherever possible to minimize truck traffic from the neighborhoods that are impacted. So at the final question, whether or not we can have setbacks of 2,500 feet, I don't think there is a one-size-fits-all rule. What I believe is that we have to go through the process that we have. We have to protect the mineral right owners as well as the surface right owners, and I believe the process that I'm proposing will do that.
Agree with much of what's been said. A couple things I want to add. I do think it's critical that we have an oil and gas commission who sees that their charge is absolutely first and foremost to protect the health and safety of Coloradans. That has to be the most important thing to do. Proud to support that case, proud of the implementation of it. I think there are three major things we have to think about. One is, how do we make sure when there is drilling, one, that it's not in places that are environmentally sensitive, like places like the tops of the Divide, others that are natural landscapes we want to be able to protect. Those shouldn't be drilled at all. The second is, how do you make sure you're not drilling into places that are ecologically unstable? Right? If you look at a map of Oklahoma right now, an earthquake map of Oklahoma, it is terrifying. Because what you'll see is earthquakes all throughout Oklahoma because folks are drilling into sandstone, which is unstable, the earth collapses and you get earthquakes. And the third is, yes, you shouldn't be drilling too close to where people live. And I think the big issue that's been not raised yet is that this is a question not just of drills coming to homes. This is a problem with homes coming to drills. Right? If you look at the massive growth in Colorado right now, what you had in Firestone was a developer who wanted to build over a big chunk of land that happened to have a bunch of oil wells on it, which is why you were 125 or 150 feet away from an oil rig, which means when you go in to fix your furnace in the basement, your house explodes. So that means we have to both create symmetrical setbacks for that. I do believe we have to expand them. And we also have to increase safety. We have to increase the number of inspectors that are going to inspect those up to 800 to 1,000 orphaned wells in the state, just like the one in Firestone that have not been capped right now. We have to make that a top priority, including potentially excavating some of those old pipelines out of the ground so they're not going to risk people long-term harm. I believe to your question, 2,500 feet, I would not support a 2,500-foot hard setback for this reason. One is, I think there are places like the tops of the Divide where you want much larger setbacks. I think there are other places where with technology focused on visibility and safety, it's possible to have shorter setbacks. So I do think we have to look statewide at increasing those setbacks. I don't know that 2,500 is the right number, so I couldn't commit to that.